Grandpa acts strangely with baby. Mom installs hidden camera and… She knew she just put him down a minute ago. Where could he have gone so quickly? Was her mommy's brain getting to her? Just then she heard his baby gurgles coming from the lounge and she ran into the room to find that he was holding him. The baby was crying and laughing, none the wiser that he'd just been taken. Louise Ann Taylor sat in the cozy living room of her suburban home, her newborn son nestled in her arms. The room was filled with the soft sounds of lullabies playing, creating a serene atmosphere that surrounded the young mother. Louise's husband Michael had stepped out to run some errands, leaving her alone with her precious bundle of joy, but she was about to receive some unexpected visitors. 40-year-old Louise Ann was a new mother with a heart as warm as the summer sun. She lived in a quaint suburban house in Redwood, Alabama with her husband, in-laws, and her new baby Blake. Louise had taken it upon herself to ensure Jack felt loved and included, despite the sorrow that lingered in the air. Jack, an 88-year-old with silver hair and a kind smile, had moved in with Louise to help with the baby and keep each other company. Louise Ann was a vibrant mother and she lived a picturesque life until her in-laws moved in with her. Her cozy home was filled with love and the joyous cries of her newborn son Blake. Her father-in-law Jack, an 88-year-old man with a heart full of tales from a bygone era, and her mother-in-law Patrice were holding on the last years she had left with spunk and attitude. Although it was an uncomfortable living condition with 3 small bedrooms, they made it work. As she gazed down at Blake's peaceful face, Louise couldn't help but feel grateful for the support of her father-in-law Jack, who'd moved in with him after the birth. Jack was a kind-hearted man, always willing to lend a helping hand. Louise cherished the moments when Jack would play with Blake, filling the house with laughter and warmth. Initially, Louise was grateful for Jack's presence as it allowed her to focus on her work and gave Blake the attention he deserved. As days turned into weeks, however, Louise noticed a change in Jack's behavior. He started holding Blake for hours at a time, almost possessively. At first, she thought it was just a sweet grandfather-grandson bond forming, but then she realized the old man's behavior meant something else. One day, as Louise watched Jack cradle Blake in his arms, she felt a twinge of worry. Jack had been holding the baby for hours and an unusual scent wafted through the airs. Louise furrowed her brow, unsure of what to make of it. She approached Jack cautiously, concern etched across her face. She didn't want to offend her father-in-law. He always did a lot for them financially. Louise stood in front of her father-in-law. "Jack, is everything okay?" she asked, trying not to sound accusatory. She didn't want to scare the old man who was lost in his own world. Jack looked up with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Oh, everything's fine, Louise, just bonding with little Blake here." He was a prim and proper man and he never liked being questioned. Days passed and Louise's unease deepened. She overheard Jack making comments that sent shivers down her spine. "He doesn't look much like Michael, does he?" Jack mused one evening, his voice taking on a sinister tone. Jack would gossip with his wife Patrice, who would just shun him off. She was constantly annoyed with him as they got into their old age. Louise dismissed it at first, attributing it to the exhaustion of caring for a newborn. She started to worry that her newborn son was being held too much. The doctor advised her not to carry him too much, but baby Blake was getting 3 times the dose with his grandparents living with him. The comments persisted, growing nastier each day. "Maybe he takes after his real father," Jack sneered, sending a chill down Louise's spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about Jack's behavior around Blake. One evening when Michael was away, Louise walked into the nursery to find Jack holding Blake again. The room was filled with an uncomfortable silence, broken only by the rhythmic creaking of the rocking chair. Louise's eyes narrowed as she noticed the intensity of Jack's gaze. "Jack, you've been spending an awful lot of time with Blake," Louise said, her voice shaky. Jack's face contorted into an unsettling grin. "He's just a special little guy, I can't help myself." He was stroking Blake's forehead in a strange way Louise didn't like. Louise's worry turned into fear. She snatched Blake from Jack's arms, a protective instinct kicking in. "You need to back off, Jack. This is our son, not yours." Jack's demeanor shifted instantly. His eyes burned with aggression and his jaw clenched. "You should be grateful I'm here to help. I just want what's best for my grandson." He threw the blanket on the floor and marched out of the room angrily. The confrontation left Louise unsettled. As she lay in bed that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that Jack's intentions were far from innocent. She wondered why he'd become so aggressive around the baby, questioning the safety of her son in the hands of the man she once thought she could trust. Sleep eluded her as she pondered the mystery of Jack's unsettling behavior, fearful of what secrets might lie beneath the surface. What could she do to get her baby back? Louise tried to keep Blake on a scheduled routine, but Jack would pick him up whenever he was alone in his crib. Louise was about to lose it, but then came a smell. Louise began to catch a whiff of an unusual odor when she entered the room where Jack spent time with Blake. What was he doing in there? Something was amiss. Unease settled in her stomach, prompting her to confront Jack gently. "Dad, I appreciate your help with Blake, but is everything okay? I noticed a strange smell." Jack chuckled nervously. "Oh, it's probably nothing, just an old cream I've been using on the little fella. Keeps his skin smooth and soft, you know. He showed her an herbal lotion with camphor inside which was safe for babies. Louise sighed in relief, accepting the explanation, but a nagging feeling lingered. Days turned into nights and Jack's behavior escalated. He began making unsettling comments claiming that Blake didn't look like his son. Louise brushed it off, thinking it was just the ramblings of an elderly man with a fading memory. She wished that her husband would return from his work trip so he could deal with his own parents. One day at her wit's end, Louise decided to set up a hidden camera in the living room, discreetly capturing Jack's interactions with Blake. As she reviewed the footage, her heart sank. Jack was in and out of lucid thinking, confusing Blake with his own son from decades ago. Louise witnessed the heartbreaking moments when Jack applied a familiar cream to Blake, just as he used to do to her husband when he was a baby. Tears welled up in Louise's eyes as she watched the footage, realizing that Jack was battling Alzheimer's disease. The man who'd once been a pillar of strength for her family was now lost in the labyrinth of his own memories. The situation had gone far beyond simple forgetfulness. It was a heartbreaking journey through the unraveling mind of a once vibrant man. Jack actually had no clue what he was doing or saying the things he was. Louise sat down with Jack, gently holding his trembling hands. "Dad," she whispered, tears streaming down her face, "I understand now. We'll get through this together." The old man laughed it off. He barely knew his daughter-in-law either, and every day was a struggle for him. Louise realized it was time for her father-in-law to get a proper diagnosis. In the midst of the pain and confusion, a new chapter began for Louise and Jack, where love and understanding would guide them through the challenges of Alzheimer's. They would navigate the intricate maze of memories together, cherishing moments of clarity and finding solace in the warmth of their shared family history. Louise became the support Jack needed in his son's absence. Torn between heartache and responsibility, Louise summoned her husband to watch the distressing footage. Luckily, Michael was home that week so she could tell him everything he missed. As they sat in front of the screen, emotions roller-coasted through them. "We need to get him help," Louise declared, her voice firm. Michael was still in shock, realizing that his father wasn't the man he once was. Michael tried to get through to his mother, Patrice, who was also senile. Together, they sought professional assistance and placed Jack in a specialized care facility. The transition was bittersweet, as they watched the man who once cared for their family enter a new chapter of his life. They wondered if old Jack knew what was happening. He thought they were going on holiday. In the facility, Jack found moments of comfort in his confused reality, surrounded by caregivers who understood his needs. They got his parents in adjoining rooms so they could both have their privacy. Louise and her husband visited regularly, bringing photos and stories from their life to share with Jack. But it wasn't enough. He begged them to bring baby Blake over so he could hold him himself. As the days passed, Blake continued to grow, unaware of the complexities that unfolded in his young life. The Taylor couple captured hundreds of photos of Blake with his grandpa, and though Jack's memories faded, the love and care he had once showered upon his family lingered, as a testament to a bond that transcended the limitations of time and memory. And when Blake grew up, he would always know that his grandfather was there with him.